The Mentoring Accreditation Blueprint is an 8-step framework to helping you get accreditation of the impact and the ROI of your mentoring scheme. We take you through a discovery call. We reach a mutual agreement about what is going to be achieved during the 8 steps. We have a strategy meeting where we will look at and plan the timescales and what's going to be done when. We'll then move on to step 4. We're thinking about the impact of your mentoring scheme before we then start looking at the evidence that shows your return on investment. We need all of this data, we need all this evidence to be in place before we can move on to undertaking the audits for your scheme accreditation and then your training accreditation for your mentor training and your mentee training, assuming that you've got that in place. And finally, we move on to the final 8th stage, which is the accreditation process itself, where you are awarded bronze, silver or gold accreditation for your scheme and for your training. Then So when we do accreditation, when we look at accreditation, we are thinking about what you've got going on already. And what we do is we start with an audit, and sometimes we'll do a pre-purchase readiness audit to make sure that you're ready to start the accreditation blueprint. But then we'll get you into the accreditation blueprint, and here we start off with getting to know you, getting to know about your scheme and things like that. We will agree a commitment. And it's a partnership. At the end of the day, accreditation is not about us sitting at arm's length. Actually, we are here to make sure that you get out of your accreditation package what you need, as well as us being able to independently say, actually, your scheme, your training has met these standards. So, having then met with us and we've done your strategy and all the rest of it, we will then get into your impact. And at this stage, we are then thinking about measuring and monitoring the impact of your mentoring scheme. We'll look at different ways that it can be measured. We'll look at finding data from before or afterwards, or putting in place measurements so that actually that impact can be measured. This then enables us to move on to the ROI, the return on investment stage. This is all before we've reached accreditation, you'll notice. By this stage, you're already understanding what it is in your scheme that is giving that impact. What it is in your scheme that's actually making it value for money. And then we go into the accreditation and we look at the different accreditation models. We look at the scheme accreditation, we look at the training accreditation, and we will consider, and it's an optional extra, whether you want then individual mentoring accreditation. So then we'd get through to actually looking at the accreditation schemes. And so we'll start looking at your accreditation for your scheme and where you're sitting in terms of the standards for bronze, silver and gold. We'll then move on to looking at your training and looking at your accreditation for the training that you give your mentors, as well as if you've got training in place for your mentees, something that we always do recommend. So that then leads to, we'll go through those, we'll go through the audits with you in steps 6 and 7, and then we'll get on to step 8, which is actually the final accreditation bit itself. You then at that point have a decision to then move on to thinking about mentor accreditation, and we can look at, move on to step 9, where you're thinking about what your accreditation is for your mentors. What are you giving back to your mentors? What qualifications are you giving them? And then we can also look at step 10, which is where we move into the Scaling Plus Master Plan, which is then about growth of your mentoring scheme. So that is what we're trying to achieve through the Mentoring Accreditation Blueprint. We are taking you through 8 steps with an optional 9 and 10 steps in order to help you to achieve independent accreditation that evidences your return on investment, the impact of your mentoring scheme, so that any time you are faced with any questions about sustainability, about the value for money and return on investment, you are able to say not only what it is, but also that it has been independently accredited by an organisation who use international standards for mentoring schemes, mentoring training, and for mentors themselves.